Hola chicos, vamos a continuar con Lección 3 sobre los boot verbs. These are our stem changing verbs, and as a reminder, our stem is everything other than the AR, ER, or IR ending. So for pedir, we've got ped. For repetir, we've got repet. For decir, we have des. Okay, all of these stems are going to have an E to I change inside the boot we've been talking about. For pedir, you're going to write pedir as your first verb in the chart on the page that you've received. Look at the type of ending that you've got. You've got IR ending. So we've got OSE, imosis, and we're going to start out with that because we know how to conjugate those endings. We know which endings to add on for AR, ER, and IR verbs. We can see that this is a stem changing verb. It's a boot verb. So we're going to draw out our boot. We know to include the yo form, the to form, el, ella, usted, and the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. We're going to leave out the nosotros and the vosotros forms. It's going to look like a boot. That's why we call them boot verbs. So inside the boot, your pedir, your ped is going to change to pid. Yo pido. Tú pides. Él pide. Nosotros is going to go back to ped. Pedimos. Vosotros pedís. Ellos piden. I want you to take a pause. Make sure you've got all these forms filled into your chart. Make sure you have your boot shaped up and colored in. Make sure you have your stem changes highlighted as well. For verbo número dos, I want you to write in repetir. This shouldn't be the first verb. This should actually be the second verb. You're going to write in repetir. Notice it has IR ending, so we're going to add in OSE, imosis, en. We always start out with what we know. I want you to draw and shade in your boot because you can see there's a stem change that takes place. You can see from those parentheses there. So we're going to shade in our boot. Now, remember yesterday for our lesson, we said that if you have a verb that has two E's in the stem, you're going to change the E that is closest to the ending. So you're going to say repito, repites, repite. Outside the boot is going to go back to repetimos, repetís, and now we're going to go back inside the boot, repiten. I want you to take a pause. I want you to make sure that your boot is highlighted and that you have the stem change highlighted in each of the forms inside the boot. All right, for your third verb on your chart, I want you to write in the verb decir. Okay, so look at what type of ending it has. That tells us we're going to add in the OSE, imosis, en endings. It has an E to I change, so we're going to draw out the boot. We know which forms to include and which forms to leave out. Make sure to leave out the nosotros and vosotros forms. And now, inside my boot, I'm actually going to have something special happen with the yo form. My yo form is actually a yogo, but the E still does change to I. So we've got digo. And everything else after that is a normal boot verb. So we have the E to I change inside the boot. It stays as your normal stem outside the boot. Digo, dices, dice, decimos, decís, dicen. We hear this verb a lot when we're reading our novels and also when you ask a question, ¿cómo se dice? So how do you know which verbs are boot verbs? For now, again, look for the verbs that have the parentheses out next to them. We teachers are going to help you out with that information for now. But soon, you're going to be expected to know and recognize which verbs are going to be required to have that boot change. So here are some that we can associate with this E to I category. We've got pedir, servir, repetir, decir, competir, and vestir. For now, I'm going to have you take a pause. Make sure that you've got all the highlights that you need for the first three charts. You're going to keep going with paso dos. Follow the steps that you have. make sure to write in your endings. Start out with what you know first, then draw your boot, then write in the stem for each of the verbs in their charts, and then highlight the stem change that takes place in each verb inside the boot. And that's it for today. Until the next time, chicos.